Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to a brand new video here today. And today we have an F1 2019 experiment, and it's one of my favorite experiments I did on last year's F1 game. It's the 1 million R&D point experiment. The question is, what happens when we have 1 million R&D resource points to spend in F1 2019 career mode? Yes, that's correct. You're not hearing me wrong. That is a 1 and 6 zeros of R&D points to spend in career mode. You can see in the top right there, we've got 1 million to spend at the very start of Season 1, the Australian Grand Prix. We're playing with the worst team in career mode, Williams, and we're just going to see what happens when you have this many R&D points to spend right off the bat at the start of Season 1. Almost as if Williams got a massive cash injection, which I'm sure they love, because obviously they have been a little bit financially burdened in recent years. So, starting the experiment off then, because we've got all these points to spend, we can go ahead and purchase every single quality control and efficiency control in the book for every department here. So that's going to mean that no part, theoretically, will fail when we purchase it to upgrade in the R&D tree, and everything will also be as efficient as possible in terms of cheap as possible. So we've already got all this money, and yet we're going to make every part cheaper than it already is. We don't need to, technically, but it just makes everything even more rapid here, and we can obviously go ahead and purchase every single upgrade we have available at the very start of these branches. So one engine upgrade that was. We've got two chassis upgrades, and you can see the branch already kind of goes out quite rapidly on the chassis side of things. And on the aero as well, Williams have two aero updates to do, along with all the quality controls, and of course, and the same thing for reliability is always the same thing for every single team, just one in the middle, and then we sprout out. Obviously, that's not going to affect the actual performance of the car, but everything else will. So it's going to be interesting to see how quickly we can do it, because I believe last year's game, F1 2018, it took us to about the Hungarian Grand Prix, or Austria, or Britain, or those kind of 3 rounds to really exponentially improve the car and unlock the kind of, basically, the momentum you gain from having all these points, basically, and that's when we really shot up right to the top. So it's going to be interesting to see if it's any faster or slower, because I feel like on this year's game, the R&D is actually a little bit faster than last year's game, but I did see a few comments saying that some of you guys felt it was actually probably a little bit slower than last year's game. Kind of depends on which team you pick, I guess, but Williams, you know, they got so much to grow. I feel like we could rapidly improve this team, especially with the contract we've also got, because the contract we've got at the initial Season 1 is pretty damn decent. We've got level 1 upgrade speed and level 1 on simultaneous development, so that means straight away every single minor upgrade is going to take 1 less week, so only 1 week to do those upgrades. So straight away for round number 2 of this first season, we'll get all these upgrades we just purchased, whereas on last year's version of the experiment, the contract we initially got in Season 1 didn't have that perk, so we had to wait like a whole 2 rounds before upgrades actually came in. So I think already we're going to see a quicker improvement, but as was the case with last year, we're going to simulate every single race, because that's going to be the control variable in this super series experiment. So I'm not going to affect the results too much. We want to see what the game itself thinks the Williams car can do as we upgrade this car with this many R&D points. So initially, obviously, at the Australian Grand Prix, not too great. Kubica in second last place, myself in last. Generally, the game does like to simulate the player a lot worse than the counterpart, you know, teammate in your same team, because it always tries to encourage you to actually play the race, basically. But obviously, at the start, we didn't expect anything more, really, from myself and Kubica in this Williams car. Obviously, no upgrades have actually come to this car quite yet. But now we move through into round number 2, and you can see a long list of upgrades there. It's just so nice to see, really. Because I've got so many bad memories from R&D failures in my actual proper career mode series, that seeing a whole page of, you know, upgrades completed, and it's even too much for the page to even store. You can see in the bottom right, it says there's actually 1 more completed there. Absolutely amazing stuff. So straight away, we already jump up a decent amount there. We can go ahead and purchase some more upgrades on the chassis side. We've got 2 more minor upgrades to do on the engine side, another minor, and the same thing with the aero as well. So we can upgrade all those, as well as a whole 7 lot of the reliability upgrades, because reliability does not actually fall under the same kind of rule as simultaneous development there, compared to the actual proper performance part. So we're already jumping ahead of the likes of Alfa Romeo in the aero department. Chassis side of things, we're still last despite those 2 upgrades, so we have a long way to go to try and even catch Alfa Romeo and McLaren in the R&D chart. With the engine, though, we're already pretty good. Obviously, we know how OP the Mercedes engine really is in this year's game, so we're looking already good in that kind of aspect, and that probably will push us along quite nice with the upgrades. But already you can see in the overall performance chart, we're now the third worst team on the grid. We were the worst team on the grid, and so we already jumped ahead of Toro Rosso and Alfa Romeo in 1 round. So already rapidly improving, and we're not too far off. And theoretically, with the coloured bars, we should be jumping ahead of McLaren once all these upgrades come in. So already we've hardly broken the bank, really. On the top right, you can see that number's nowhere nowhere near even like, you know, the 900k mark. I feel like we won't even get near to 900k by the time we've maxed out this car, really. So it is kind of overkill, of course, with the 1 million points. But as I said, it's always a funny number to look at. And so we go through to the Bahrain GP. Still not really that much improvement, though. Kubica got one more place, at least. So he beat Giovinazzi in the Alfa Romeo. I still came in last place in that simulation there. So still the game's kind of lagging and kind of making Williams come last there with the simulation, despite the fact we should be on paper ahead of Toro Rosso and Alfa Romeo. But that's fair enough. That has happened before in the experiment. It takes a while for everything to really kick in. But we move on to the very next round and another big raft of upgrades. Again, another email where all the upgrades don't even fit onto the paper once again. So looking lovely. And again, we can do a whole another set of reliability upgrades and also 2 more minor on the aero side of things. So a lot of minors on the aero. It kind of makes sense for Williams to have so many minors on the aero and also the chassis to start off with, because they need to really improve. Like, if you look at real life, they really do need to improve their aero. So it makes sense that the R&D tree, you can kind of rapidly go through it with all these minor upgrades to start off with, whereas maybe a team like, you know, Ferrari or Mercedes or Red Bull might have more majors very early on in their R&D trees for the aero because they're the top team. So you have that kind of, you know, diminishing returns kind of effect, essentially, and Williams have so much to grow, whereas Mercedes do not. So, you know, we're kind of really digging into the tree quite quickly, actually. We actually have to go backwards as well on ourselves a little bit there, because we've got a drag reduction upgrade. So I can't actually do both the front and rear upgrades on the aero side of things. And on the chassis side of things now, we've got 2 major upgrades. So those are going to take a lot longer now, because we don't have a contract negotiated to reduce the major upgrades by 1 week. So those will take a little bit longer, unfortunately. So this is where now it's a bit of a waiting game for the chassis side and even the engine, which is a major upgrade as well. So maybe we see a bit of slow progress now before we can renegotiate our contract after round 4, which is obviously going to come up very, very soon. But that was also a bottleneck that we saw last year, and it's also a bottleneck this year. You can see now we're going to be plateauing. We have overtaken McLaren, actually, in the R&D chart. So already it's been 3 rounds, and we haven't even done the 3rd race yet, and we're already near the middle of the chart. So kind of proving my point that I do think R&D is a little bit quicker in this year's game. Obviously, yes, I have so many points, but it kind of just proves that you can rapidly go through if you do get the points quite quickly. The tree is just easier to do, I feel, on this year's game than last year's one. So we're already pretty much near enough midway. I mean, as soon as we overtake Racing Point, we are in the middle of the R&D list, basically, for all the teams there. So we go through to China. Robert Kubica now comes in P16. So that is a bit of a better improvement. Myself still in last place, so that kind of thing I said about the game constantly, you know, really pushing the player down for the simulation, and your teammate does kind of better. But you can see we are slowly starting to climb up now, and I feel like it's only a matter of time before we start to see a bigger leap, and maybe Kubica gets into the points-paying positions, perhaps. We move on now to another round and another email list of a whole raft of upgrades, although, to be fair, majority of these ones are going to be the reliability, because we've only got these 2 minors on the aero, because now we're getting to that point where we have to wait for that contract to be renegotiated for us to get the reduced major times, and so we still have to wait a few rounds for the engine and chassis side of things. But the aero upgrades will still be welcome. They are going to, you know, force us down the tree, of course, and open up the aero side of things even more. And we still have 1 minor of the aero to do, and also we've got a minor drag update, because the Williams aero tree is actually really odd. It's got this kind of inner bit where you go backwards on yourself and then go back down the tree for that drag reduction. So very odd. So we do have 2 more minors to go for the aero side before we have to start doing some major upgrades, and we're still waiting on the everything else. But now we can see we are kind of slowly starting to plateau now from China to Baku there, but we're still maintaining that pace ahead of McLaren and getting very close to Racing Point indeed. And Renault and Haas have really not upgraded that much at this point in the season. They've had a small upgrade from Bahrain to China there, so I would say maybe within 3 rounds we could be top of the midfield team, which is pretty insane to think about. And then we can start to catch up to Red Bull, Mercedes and Ferrari. They don't know what's hit them. They don't know how much money we've suddenly randomly got from a very dodgy income source here. You thought the recent amount of spending coming into football from the Middle East was bad. This is something else. This is something else here we're witnessing in Formula 1. So we move on then to the results from the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Kubica comes in P12 then. So now you are seeing we're getting close to that points pay position there, naturally, from the simulated kind of, you know, what the game thinks Williams can do now with this car. Of course, though, once again, myself as a player, player, I get shafted with the simulation because they want you to try and play the actual game. They're really trying to, force you to actually go ahead and drive it, but obviously I'm not having any of it. I'm going to simulate as much as I can here, but we do now move on to that contract negotiation, and of course, even though we haven't done that much in terms of performance stuff, we should be able to renegotiate a pretty okay contract here, and so we're going to try and go for level 2 on the upgrade speed to try and guarantee us, and so we're going to try and get that level 2 upgrade speed, which is going to mean that the mages are going to be reduced by 1 week, which would be very crucial to unlock the basic potential of growing the team very rapidly indeed. I've had to really play around with the qualifying and race position expectations and put those quite high to actually get a contract that's going to work out, and no pit stop efficiency, no race bonus, but of course we don't need race bonus, we don't need pit stop efficiency, we don't need to have an easy team goal because we've got all the R&D points we need. I'm simulating the races, so pit stops aren't going to come into it, so the only thing we need to worry about is simultaneous development and the upgrade speed. So we do eventually get a good contract that's going to allow us to reduce those upgrade times on the majors, and so that's going to be quite timely because on the aero side of things we can upgrade 1 major at least on the left hand side of the tree. The right hand side is still pending because those upgrades are still coming in 1 round's time, but at least we get that done. But we go to the Spanish Grand Prix. Funny enough to say that Spain is usually the big one where all the teams in real life have major upgrades. We only had 2 minor upgrades here of the aero side of things, but that finally unlocks those 3 majors on the left, right, and middle of the aero tree. You can see really how stacked the Williams aero tree really is once you get into it. So we can go ahead and purchase all 3 of them because we've got the simultaneous development now on the contract as well. So that's going to be really good. So 3 on the go, but those will still take some time. But now you can see we're creeping up and we're getting very close to overtaking Racing Point. And you can see the potential on the right hand side. Look at the bar there. The potential. Once all these upgrades come in that we've got pending, we will be the top of the midfield. And we'll actually be very close to Red Bull already once all the ones we purchase are just coming in. So it's a waiting game now. And so we just wait around for that to happen. So we go ahead and simulate Spain then. And Kubica comes in P14 then. So a bit of a downgrade actually from what happened last race. Azerbaijan, quite funny enough, and myself in P17. So at least myself, I've moved up the order then. I'm not stone dead last now in the simulation, which I want to point out. I think I pointed this out last year as well. I want to point out again, I really don't agree with the fact that the game purposely simulates you poorly because they want you to play the game. I think it should be like FIFA where you can simulate multiple seasons and do well, and the game just properly simulates you. I don't see why they should really forcefully try and give you bad positions to make you play the game. I don't get it. They should just let you do that because it's fun to do. It's fun to see what would happen if you just simulate that. Fun little scenarios like this. But you can see on the development update now we've overtaken Racing Point and Renault as well, and we are very close to overtaking Haas. And once our aero upgrades actually all come in, we'll be fully ahead of Haas and now on our way to try and chasing after those top 3 teams. So the upgrades come in very, very decently for us now. And you can see on the engine side of things, we're actually really quite far up in terms of how much we've got left to go, really, because the potential is not that much. Because like I said, the Mercedes engines are so powerful already in the game that there's not much more to do, whereas the aero and chassis side of things on the Williams car are so stat. There's so much of the tree left to go on the aero and the chassis. I mean, chassis side, I haven't even locked everything yet. I can't even see the very end of the tree, whereas with the aero thing, I think I can see just about the end of it. And also the reliability, we're still doing those and still finishing those off, even those are very novelty upgrades. We're still going to may as well do that to make sure we get a fully maxed out car pretty much that we're aiming for. But such a long list of upgrades we've now got on the pending, and it's getting pretty ridiculous. And so as we move through then simulating the Monaco Grand Prix, I didn't really know what to expect because Monaco, obviously if you have a good qualifying you should go well there, but Kubica comes in P13 then ahead of Carlos Sainz. Myself, I got simulated down to P20. You can see on the grid, I started P5 because I actually went out and did this qualifying. I got P5 in the Williams, and then it simulates me down to P20. So again, I said it before, I'll say it again. It might get tiring, but it just doesn't make any sense. Why if I started P5 in a Williams car that is now nearly the best car in the midfield, why would you simulate me down to P20? Like, it does not make any sense. Stop trying to force me to play the game. People might want to just simulate through races and do well, If you're too busy working, whatever, or too much uni or school work, you might just want to simulate one race because you can't be asked to do it, and it's just going to be really rubbish if it just simulates you down to P20. So it just doesn't make any sense. But there you go, kind of proves my point there from P5 to P20 on the Monaco Grand Prix grid. But there we go, we move on, and so we move on to the Canadian Grand Prix, and now we have a whole host of actual upgrades coming in. 2 engine upgrades. We've got the 3 majors on the aero side of things as well. So we're going to go ahead and dive even deeper into the chassis side of things and do another layer of upgrades, essentially the top, middle, and bottom on the chassis side, and those are minor upgrades, so those will be very quick. Obviously, only 1 week to go, so a lot of minors actually in the chassis side of things for the Williams team compared to the aero where we had to do a lot of majors there. But now we've actually got some more minors. So 3 minors on the go. Love it. So next round, we'll have straight away 6 upgrades coming in from that side of things. And then on the engine side as well, 2 more minors. So we're loving life. Literally, that's so 8 upgrades for next race. That is bonkers here. And you can see we're top of the tree now for engine. We're the most powerful engine on the grid. We're 4th place in aero, only below the top 3 teams. And chassis side also, I don't think we're too bad as well on the chassis side of things. So we are getting very, very good. And the exponential growth now is ridiculous. If you look at the R&D progress graph, look at that jump from Monaco to Canada. So last year, I think the jump like this was around Austria to Britain. This has come a full 3-4 rounds earlier from Monaco to Canada. That massive, almost straight line up to catch Red Bull. We're literally touching Red Bull's line now. It's ridiculous how quickly that's come. So I went ahead and actually did the Canadian Grand Prix qualifying, and Robert Kubica beat me, and I came in 7th place on a controller. He came in 6th place there, so looking very good indeed. That's literally where our car is on paper as well. Just in that kind of P6, 7 kind of slot, kind of best of the rest there. You know, Gasly did poorly in the Red Bull. No surprise there. We simulate the race. Kubica finally gets his first points of the season. I get my first points of the season, so it's taking the Canadian Grand Prix to get some first points here, but awesome stuff there. P5 and P8 then, so this time, thankfully, I didn't get simulated down that much from my P5 at Monaco. This was only from P6 down to P8 then. Still worse off than I didn't qualify, but still, it's still going to be points at least, so that's very good. So the first signs now fully of the game acknowledging this, you know, exponential improvement of the car and actually simulating us where we should kind of be. And then we move on to the next Grand Prix, and this is just mad. We've got 8 upgrades coming in. 8, and they're all, you know, nothing's failed. It's all beautiful. And so now on the R&D graph, I just don't even know, I don't even comprehend where we're going to be, but we can purchase obviously some more upgrades. We've got some potential ultimates on the kind of aero right at the bottom there. We've got many majors on the aero and the engine side of things, and also the chassis side on the top and the bottom. In the middle, it's a minor upgrade there, so that'll come in next episode. But look at the R&D graph there now. We are officially already the best car on the grid on paper. It's taken how many rounds? 7 rounds. Because it's round 8 now, but technically we've done 7 only, and we're yet to do the 8th round. It's taken 7 rounds, and we're the best team on the grid. So this has definitely been a lot faster than F1 2018 was. We definitely hit a bump in the road in 2018 with contracts. That kind of slowed us down for sure. And like I just said, I feel like for teams like Williams in this game, the upgrade speeds are faster on this year's game. So we're already the best team. Williams really hope they could do this in real life, but alas, they can't. But that's just mad. We're already the best team now on paper. We're going to go ahead and simulate that for the French Grand Prix. Kubica gets the podium there. So that's the first natural podium for the team. You know, that the game thinks Williams should be getting a podium now in the game behind the 2 Mercedes cars. I come in P8 again, but that's not too bad. Again, points paying positions. We're beating what our contract asks of us, because our contract said P9 and P11, I think it was. I think we said P11 in the race and P9 in qualifying, so we got P8 in the race, so we beat that objective. Kubica gets a podium though, so that's pretty bonkers. And so at this point of recording the video, I thought, you know what, we might actually be able to max out this car just about the end of Season 1. Like, it took me till China, which was round 3 of Season 2, to max out this Williams car on last year's game with this 1 million R&D point experiment. So I thought, you know what, I think we could do this at Abu Dhabi. But little did I know what was about to come around the corner. Bear in mind, the team just got a podium. I came in 8th place in a Williams, which is pretty solid. I've helped them get from the worst car on the grid to the best car on the grid. And we got points. I'd like to reiterate that again. We beat our contract objectives. And this is what happened.
If you carried on as you were and you didn't start putting in the kind of performances the team expected, you were going to lose your drive. Well, it's happened. As of today, you are no longer an employee of this organization. Lucky for you, one of us is competent. I found you an option elsewhere, and I suggest you take it if you want any hope of salvaging this so-called career of yours.
That actually happened. This actually happened. I got fired from Williams for helping them get from last place to first place in the R&D chart in 7 races. I'll repeat that, 7 races I helped them get up from last to first on paper, and they fire me for completing contract I beat the objectives I set myself of expected qualifying position, expected race, twice, because we did it at Canada as well, and France. The Kibita just got a podium. There was no reason to fire me, and yet they did. So I had to renegotiate a contract with Alfa Romeo Racing, which is ironic because I was already with them in my actual career mode series. I went and continued on just to see what happened. And so the next round, they plateaued a little bit, but they're still top. I helped them get in that top position. And how do they repay me? They fire me. They almost acted like Williams have done in real life. I mean, absolutely stupid. So yeah, I don't know what to say, really. Bit of a weird ending to the video, I can't lie. But the video obviously is titled, What Happens When You Have 1 Million R&D Points? Well, what happens is, apparently, the game just tries to finesse you and says, no, you're not going to break the game by giving yourself 1 million R&D points. We're just going to fire you and stop this entire madness that you're trying to do. So, I don't know what occurred. I don't know what the game, randomly just like, you know what, Aarav, you're not gonna complete this successful 1 million R&D points experiment. We're going to finesse you and just fire you. So there we go. I don't know what to say. If you guys have enjoyed the video nonetheless, then hit that like button. But let me know if you guys want me to basically essentially redo this video. I'm going to have to try and actually do some of these races and, try and not get last place in the first few rounds, I guess, to actually physically try and max out this Williams car, because I feel like that's half the fun of this experiment, is to see a Williams car get to the max and see how rapid it is, basically. So if you want me to redo this, basically, and actually get to a max Williams car, then I will do that and kind of repackage the video saying, what a max Williams car looks like. But this was genuinely what happens when you have 1 million R&D points to spend. You apparently get a team from last to first and then get fired. That's what physically happened to me. There's no two ways about it. That is what happened. So there you go. If you did enjoy the video, hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, you can subscribe for weekly full-on content. I'm so sorry the video ended so randomly like this, but this is what happened to me. So there you go. I'm baffled. You're baffled. It's time to go lie down. I don't know. But yeah, if you did enjoy it, hopefully you did. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.